It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Columbia, this is... This is Houston, AOS, over.
What's going on, folks? Welcome to a very special episode of the Knicks Wall Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Kyle Maggio, joined by my co-hosts Mike Cortez and Shaun Geddes. And today, you know, the winning streak came to an end, but we still felt the need to reward you guys with a very special guest. We brought on Jerry Ferrara, everybody's favorite Knicks fan. What's going on, buddy? How's everything?
What's going on, guys? Yes, it was tough to say goodbye to the streak. That streak has given me so much fulfillment in my heart, but we knew they weren't going to win every game coming into the end of the season, and took a couple of circus shots to get it done. But yeah, man, I'm proud of this team.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that I want to touch on before we get to the streak, before we get to the minutia of all the play and everything else, mainly just want to talk to you about just the vibe of being a Knicks fan this season, because it has been so much fun. And I feel like that's been the sentiment across the board, no matter if you're a generally pessimistic fan, like I've generally always been, everybody yells at me. If you've been an optimistic fan like Shaun, it doesn't really matter, because we've all come to the same consensus that all that stuff doesn't really matter. This has been a fun season, broke a lot of expectations, and we're just sort of along for the ride. We're riding for Julius, we're riding for Randall, riding for RJ, all these other guys. But just kind of wanted to pick your brain on like maybe what your expectations were coming into the season versus like where we're at now and everything, and sort of how it's unfolded.
So I'm definitely a little more like Shaun. You said Shaun's more optimistic, right? Is that true, Shaun? Like I'm kind of the same way. Like it's always easy to point out the flaws of your team. Like anyone can do that. The real work is like digging through the flaws to see what's good about this team that you could maybe use going into a next season or beyond, right? So that's what I'm always, believe me, I get plenty frustrated in the last 8 years since our last playoff appearance with the team. So I've certainly voiced that, but I've always tried to stay positive coming into this year. And it's so hard because this year really is such a wild card with everything, obviously with COVID going on. But I was very curious to see how we would play and a few of the other teams that did not make it to the bubble, right? Because these are a lot of younger teams who were losing, a lot of younger players who hadn't really touched the basketball since the second week of March, where I know typically the Knicks games aren't very valuable in March and April, but either way, there's still reps. There's still guys out there trying to earn contracts and improve on their game. So I was just very curious to see what, like how everyone talks about LeBron had the shortest break of all time. Randall had the longest break of all time, so barring without being an injury situation. So I was very curious coming in. I said when they first signed Julius Randle, I said coming in that I think he could make the all-star team in the East specifically, especially that going into that was like, Durant wasn't playing. I actually thought it would be the previous year that got shortened. So, and I actually wanted the Knicks to go after Tibbs before we went to Minnesota. Like there was talk of maybe him coming to New York before we got the T-Wolves job. And I thought Tibbs would have been a great fit there. I then did worry after he was with the T-Wolves, like so much time had gone by, you wonder, like, has he been out too long? But I was very happy with the Tibbs signing. And my goal was always like, get to the play-in game. You could come in 10th. Like it can happen. That's on the Wizards were dead 2 weeks ago and they went on a streak and now they're right there. So my goal going in was I want the young players to develop and I want Tibbs to really try to help change the culture, preach defense first. And I just wanted to get to the play-in game. That's all I want. Give me like one important game in May and I'm thrilled. Those are my expectations. Sorry, I ramble a lot. Sorry, Shaun, I ramble a lot.
No, you're good, bro. You're good. It's funny because the play-in is exactly like the same thing you had. Like, when Randall got here, I was like, he can be an all-star for sure. Like I was saying that my friends clowned me after the season for saying it. So really, David Fizdale owes me an apology for making me a year late on being a genius. But even then, when you said like you like to like you're an optimistic fan, you take things like last year was really frustrating. But I was like, you know what? RJ Barrett showed that he is a starter. Mitchell Robinson is a starting level center. Julius Randle it was in his own way, but is a starting level power forward. So it's like when you start getting some things in place, it makes it easier for, now you get one, you get lucky at pick 25 and you get an Emmanuel quickly. And all of a sudden, like, things start to look a lot better. So definitely, like, that positive outlook, and, bit by bit. And the play-in, I actually want to avoid the play-in at all costs but I feel like that's what happens with expectations once you start winning. Like, but I've been saying from the beginning of the season, like, because we were the first people to, when they changed the lottery odds, we were the first team to be the worst team. I don't want to be the first team to do something again, not in that regard. So
yeah,
I want to avoid the play-in completely, lock in a top 6 seed, and move forward.
I was going to be happy with a play-in, and then RJ kind of woke me up yesterday where he was just like, play-in? I'm trying to do more than that. Like, we're not just happy with making the playoffs. So that really woke me up. And Gary, I wanted to ask you, since you got to experience the 90s, which I'm very jealous of, is this feeling right now where we have Randall that's kind of setting the tone for like a whole new era? You can kind of feel the culture shifting. Is it as exciting as the 90s, or is it just a completely different feel?
So I was thinking about this a lot, right? And I actually just read that that book that Paul wrote on the 90s Knicks, which if you guys haven't checked it out, it's dope. It's a great book. So here's what this feels like, okay? And I remember this very well being about like 11, 12 years old. It's not 1994 where we get to the finals and lose to the Rockets. It's more like 1991, 92. Riley just comes in. And the Knicks at that point, like, they had stolen the series from the Celtics years before, but they weren't really going anywhere. Patrick Ewing was now starting to enter the like prime, like, it's your time now. You're one of the best centers in the league, but the team was still kind of rudderless until Riley comes in. And then that's where this grimy defense first kind of thing took over. And I think they played the Bulls in 92. And in the game, in the series where like no one gave the Knicks a chance. And I think the Bulls beat them in 6, but it was a fight, man. It was ugly. Like, the Knicks were at times like looking like they were the alphas, almost like the Pistons thing was repeating itself. So it feels more like that, like we are at the beginnings of this generation starting, than sort of like the 94 Knicks, where it's like, okay, now we're expected to be the 1 or 2 seed. We're expected to get to the Eastern Conference Finals every year. And obviously we just ran into Jordan every year and it stopped us short like so many. So I would say this feels like the 90s, but early 90s, when like Riley's just coming in and the Knicks were really starting to get a little frisky in the playoffs. And then obviously when we got to 93, there was that, 3-2, 2-2 lead, 2-2 series with game 5. But that's where we started to be taken as like, okay, this is one of the best teams in the East. We're not quite there yet, but I feel like that's the direction that we're heading. And we have all our assets for the first time in like forever. We have no bad contracts, no bad moves. We're not like in a situation with the Wolves where we could lose our draft pick if we don't come in, it's not protected. So if it feels like the beginnings of the like, setting up the 90s, and maybe that's me being optimistic like Shaun, but that's just the feelings I'm getting. But the 94 stuff, once we were like perennially, whatever that word is, like expected to be top, like that was the most exciting time.
Yeah, I think it's a whole new thing because, back then, like, the Knicks were still respected before that. You know what I mean? Like, they maybe had some down years, but they were still respected across the league or whatever else. And they were just coming into a new good era. We have been so downtrodden. Even like the Melo era seems like a blip sometimes because like they had basically 2.5 years where they were like winning to different degrees and obviously getting to the playoffs. We know 12-13 was the best season, but this seems more like it's so joyful in the way that it got done because Shaun knows I was so high on Julius Randle like forever. This has been like a 4 or 5 year thing with me and Randle. I wanted him with Porzingis. I was screaming it at people. I thought that was a nasty 4 or 5 pairing that we could have for the future. And then we lose the first number 6. We get Julius Randle, and I was like, all right, still got one. We'll see what happens. And I kind of felt like you, Jerry. I thought, yeah, why couldn't he be an all-star? He's a 2010 guy. He's still 24, 25 when we got him. Like, why not? And then even with that, just to see like the level of play that he's kind of gotten to this year, and then the way guys have followed his lead, like RJ especially has been like, all right, man, like you're confident. I'm going to be confident now. And then you see it rubs off on the rest of the team. So it really is kind of like a ragtag bunch of guys that nobody seemed to believe in because nobody believed in the franchise really. And they just kind of, for the first time, we were begging guys to do this for quite some time. Like they were all just like, we like that nobody's paying attention. We like that guys are sleeping on us. We like that it motivates us. Like we needed more motivation, but it motivates us. And it's just like, it's like a new edge that I haven't quite seen. I felt like the 90s Knicks still felt like, yeah, we're the Knicks, we're New York. These guys feel that way, but it's more like okay, well, you guys forgot about New York. You guys forgot about New York. And now look, you didn't expect us to be in the top 8 out East. And we're number 4. They might get home court. They lost that game against the Suns and didn't flinch because I think the Hawks and Heat still lost and they're still sitting in 4th. I mean, it's a new identity, and it really is just like, it's just fun. It's just so much fun.
It's you really do feel like you could win any game now, and it's been a long time since we felt that. We had that a little bit in 12-13 or 13-14, I call it the Steve Novak season, although his Melo was like an MVP candidate that year, where we could beat any team on any night, and it kind of has that feeling right now. And the big thing that everybody slept on with Randall, and I guess you don't really know this unless you're within the organization, but now everyone's talking about it with like RJ and Quickly. It's like the guys, like every player's competitive. Every player wants to be good. There's money at stake. There's pride, but like there's a difference when you see someone who takes on the challenge of being the guy on the Knicks. And I don't even know if anyone officially gave Randall that title because last season was such a weird blur of bad basketball, but also COVID and stuff. But he gave it to himself going into this offseason. He said, I'm going to come back and I'm going to be the leader of this team and accept everything that comes with it, especially in New York City being the team. That's right. The team in New York City, all of it that comes with that. And if we're bad, it's going to be on me. People are going to look at me. And he rose to the occasion and didn't shrink. And to me, that's all I ever want. And, the hardest thing I think for any coach to do is to get the team to play for each other, and play for not so much the fans, but like the fans in the sense of like play for the team, play for each other. And that's what all these guys are doing. And it's beautiful to watch. And I said play-in before the season started. I don't want the play-in now. I want the playoffs. Like now I've tasted it. You're right, Shaun. Like saying I don't want to drop down to the 7th seed. I want to be a playoff team now because I've tasted it.
And it's just crazy how like perception can shift because, at the end of the first half of the season, it was, the Knicks second half schedule is so tough, blah, blah, blah. Like, how are they going to pull these games out? And even when we saw the 6-game road trip, like the 6-game road trip when we saw it in the beginning of the season looked like, wow, they really put this at the end of our schedule. Like they're trying. But honestly, I'm really not afraid of that 6-game road trip. It's just like you said, Jerry. Like I feel like we can win every night. Like against every team we're matched up with, even with Phoenix. Like Phoenix is one of the best teams in the NBA. And I wasn't really afraid of that game. Like I went into it feeling like, I went into that game honestly feeling like Julius Randle could be the best player on the floor.
Yeah, and look, the Suns did a great job with him. I mean, we started off so hot, and it was almost like a false sense of security. Bullock was like 4 for 4 from 3. He went cold, some foul trouble. And honestly, it did look like maybe there was a little fatigue in those closing 5 minutes. And also, I listen to a lot of podcasts, everyone's talking about the Knicks right now. And a lot of the narrative is like, look at the job Tibbs does and look what you could do with team chemistry because this team is not that good. I'm like, well, I don't understand how you could say that. Like, you win 9 in a row, you're the 4 seed. Like, you're a good team. I know there's overachievement, and that can happen. But we've been doing this without Mitchell Robinson, whom I'm sorry is a really, really good center who we absolutely need right now. Noel, all props to Noel for taking on, like, the challenge. And Taj, like, yeah, I get it on paper that might not be the best center rotation, but as filling in for the starting center who's now out again. Those guys have been unbelievably good. And so I always said, even before, like, I thought the Burke signing was one of the sneaky good signings of the season for any team at that price to get a vet like that, who actually was a 40-something% 3-point shooter and can play D, who's been playing point guard for us in the closing minutes and closed out the Pelicans. We won another 3 in a row since he's been out. And obviously you hope everything's okay with him and he's feeling good and he will be welcomed back to the lineup because we really could have used him against Phoenix. That would have been really helpful. That was like the exact kind of stuff that we needed. Some perimeter shooting, some perimeter D and playmaking going down the stretch. Because Randall, they were bottling him up. They did a great job on Randall. You got to give, props where props are due. Like they're good. Their Suns are really, really good, if not great team.
Yeah, and they had to have Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and Mikal Bridges bring their A+ game, which I think in itself is an achievement. And then on top of that, Randall and RJ weren't really that on that night either. So you have all that mixed in. Derrick Rose, by the way.
Oh, he's been so good.
I have no idea how I can be shocked by Derrick Rose since I saw Chicago Rose. But man, he's been a godsend I think that's the best trade so far this year in terms of what they gave up, because Dennis Smith was already on the outs. Now you have Rose in. I think Rose is already the captain of the bench mob. I think he should move in to a more significant role moving forward. But I mean, he did everything. He scored 20 again, fighting for loose balls. He's just amazing. And I think with him moving forward, I think future is bright.
Yeah, he's doing everything. Even in that Pelican game, the Bullock 3 for the tie game, like Derrick Rose took over that whole fourth quarter, but he's not doing it in the ways that former MVP Derrick Rose used to have to do. It actually seems like a role he's much more comfortable with. I wonder if he is, where he could just sort of take what the game is giving to him, play within the team concept, and not have to be like, okay, you got to go score 12 in the last 3 minutes to get this home. He can, but just that drive and dish, like it's just such a high IQ play. And Lonzo should not have come over. And yeah, he definitely left and it was a mistake, but it wasn't a massive mistake. Like that pass needed to be there in the pocket and needed to happen quicker, else he could have got back to at least get a little close. And that was one of Bullock's most wide open corner threes of the season. So Rose has been spectacular. And it just goes to show you that the combination of young guys and vets, if you get that right combination, it goes a long way. That's why, like, I don't know if Taj ever knew he could play this much, and he's been playing well, but you could even see what he's doing for Noel and other guys. It's a really great combination right now.
Yeah, the Rose thing to me, I wasn't sour on him the last time he was here per se, but it was very clear last time he was here. It was just buckets. Like, he's here to score. He was here to be a scoring guard first and foremost. But this time, the way that he's doing it, because he's been nearly as effective scoring off the bench as he was for us as a starter back then, right? And on top of that, he's making as many defensive plays these days as he is offensive plays. And that's what's the first couple of weeks, I was like, maybe I'm seeing things. Like, I don't, maybe he's just getting lucky, a lot of tip passes. Then I started noticing he's blocking shots every game. Then he's blocking shots with the tip passes that are leading out to like little leak outs and breaks. And I was like, like this guy plays really good defense. I don't know what's happening. Then we check the stats and then he's a much improved defender. And it's like, wow, man. Like, and it's a lot of things. It's Rose is playing really well, but it's also like you guys, mentioned, it's Tibbs setting the tone, Tibbs reuniting the band to some degree, getting guys who understand his system and the way he likes to do things. And guys are bought in. And when this many guys are bought in, like you already had Randall, RJ, Mitch, these guys are bought in. And now to get guys who are mid or late season acquisitions like Taj came along, kind of just off the couch. He wasn't doing anything. And now he's playing big minutes, and Rose is leading the charge. So it's little things like that, like you said, Jerry, it's not really a talent question. They actually do have plenty of talent. It was just, are these guys going to get the chemistry and be engaged enough to realize that talent? And they have. I mean, how could you argue, even with the winning streak, and you can say maybe they were just on fire, whatever. They were in 6 seed contention the last couple months, right? They would maybe lose a couple of games and then go down 7-8, but then they come right back up to 5 or 6. So this isn't like new territory for them. They've been in this middle of the pack in the out east territory, and now they're starting to kind of get a stranglehold on things. And it's nice to see vets stepping up as they've been shorthanded, right? Different instances. And it's just a mentality, a makeup we haven't seen on teams in quite some time. But Rose has really been, I wouldn't say I hated the trade because I knew the price we paid for it was really good. Like, I like Dennis, but he wasn't doing enough here. Dennis, it was basically free. Getting Derrick Rose for free is the way to put it. And
he needed a fresh start as well. I think he's a good player. I think he will benefit from being somewhere else too. Look, there is another side to this conversation of the challenges that we are going to be faced with. And I'm definitely thrilled to talk about all the good points. Like we get to quick. I actually think Toppin's been playing so much better, and I don't know if he's been getting the credit just yet. Obviously, he does not get the minutes either to really have an explosive game, but the game where he hit a few threes, he's getting really quality rebounds in traffic now, hitting the outlets, and he's starting to see the athleticism, a few nice dunks, a few reverses. So everyone's growing. The thing that will always be our true Achilles heel, and it will be down the stretch, is can we shoot the three consistently enough? That's always going to be our thing. Can we keep the turnovers down? And then keeping that balance of Randall in isolation where he's just dominating and Randall in isolation where he's still creating for other people. Sometimes it gets a little too much score ISO. And he's so good that it doesn't really hurt us at this point, but it can get a little messy. But I think he's at his best when he's mixing in scoring with creating, because then he's just like, he's got everybody off balance. So, and we're about to embark on a tough stretch. We got to beat the Bulls tonight. I'm not talking like it's not a must-win game, but it's a must-win game. You got to beat the Bulls. You got to beat the Rockets. Okay, the Grizzlies are good, but that's a winnable game. We got to beat the Grizzlies because like the Lakers with LeBron back and AD, that's gonna be tough. The Clippers are one of the hottest teams in the league in the second half. And the Suns are the Suns. So those are 3 games that I'm not saying we're gonna lose, but you certainly have to just take care of your business right now. And then we will be the 4 or 5, 6 or 6 seed if we just beat the teams we're supposed to beat.
And they've been good at that this season. That's one thing that they've really done. They beat up on the teams they're supposed to. But on that Randall point, I think it's even more crucial because Phoenix did it a lot. And then before them, the Raptors did a lot where they're just doubling Randall right off the bat in the half court. And if you don't have that shooting around him, like when you see the difference when Quickly's there versus when Elf or mostly Elf there's not many places to go. So Randall's got to keep that up. And RJ being a menace on catch and shoots is another key part of that. If he's hitting shots, man, it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, Phoenix just did a good job. They really did. They just really, in the second half, after we were scorching hot, they took a lot away from RJ that he likes to do. They really did a good job of sneaky double team. And Bridges is super long, so he's able to like hedge and get back. But it's going to be a great test. But most importantly than anything is like we're watching meaningful games in late April and early May. And, you like to think we have the play-in locked up at this point. So we're going to get at least one playoff game, but also don't sleep on this, guys. Okay. And maybe you guys have talked about it and I missed it. Our last game of the season is against the Celtics. That could be a very meaningful game. That could be the difference potentially even from like a 6 seed and a 7 seed or a 4 seed. And that game could mean a lot depending on how this shakes out. So that's going to feel like a playoff game either way, unless I just don't see us somehow having the 4 seed locked up by that point. But stranger things have happened with this team. But that could be a very intense, meaningful game.
That and the day before that, they play the Hornets. And both are at MSG. And the reason I bring the Hornets up was because when LaMelo went down initially, it was for the rest of the season, right? That was the thought.
No, he's looming now.
and now he's about to practice today or tomorrow. And they're still, I think, in 8th. So
and Haywood should be back too by that point, right?
Yeah, so they could potentially, they could really be making a late push when they're not even out of the playoffs. So both of those games are going to be really crucial for seeding in some way, shape, or form in the East, because those 3 have been bunched up this entire time. The Hornets were up towards the 4 or 5 seed too before LaMelo went down. So he's going to be itching, and by that time, I'm sure he's going to have a couple games under his belt. So it's going to be a fight to the finish, which it's exciting. It's a little scary, but it's exciting. Even the West Coast trip coming up, the fact that we even have to worry about LeBron and the Clippers, but in a good way, like,
right.
All right, man, we've been getting up for these games. We got to try to get 1 or 2 of them, see what happens. Like the fact that we can even have these conversations, like, and the fact that you even have to think about the Hornets and Celtics point of view, like now you guys have to come to MSG to close the season out and try to get your playoff spot. Not just the Knicks are fighting to get in. The Knicks are in. We just want a better seed now. And now you got to worry about putting that pressure on them too. Like, all right, you guys got to come in here and fix, because they've been great at home, the Knicks at MSG. So that's the other part too. When was the last time that they were truly like dominant at home? And
I was just
I'm
about to
so
say
happy right now. My heart is so full. I'm so happy right now.
yeah, it's nice, man. I mean, if they get the 4 seed, right? That's home court. Like, I couldn't, if they get the 4 seed, they get home court. Like I might need to take another month off just from how happy I'm going to be. Like, it's just such a good position to be in.
And look, every team, and I don't care how good you are, every team needs some breaks, right? Like, we certainly have gotten some breaks. Like, that bullet corner 3 in years past never goes in. Like, that's just always the shot that we've had, and it's just not gone in, and it's going in this year. You know, I personally think the Hawks would have beat us if Trae Young doesn't get hurt. That's my opinion. So I just from what I watched, what they had going on with Trae Young and that staggered double screen, we really had no answer for it. And I know everyone's saying, "Oh, the Knicks like Hawks 4-5 would be such a fun first round playoff match." It would be. I'm terrified at Trae Young 100%. So, you know, you got to get, I'm not saying that's like a lucky break, like you root for that, because I hate seeing any player get injured, let alone, you know, the most important player on a team. I want to beat the team at full strength. But, you know, if we could just stay healthy and maybe a few more of those corner threes go in and we survive, like we'll be fine. And we will be playing a playoff game at MSG one way or another. And yeah, it's all right there. And we have assets. Although the Mavericks pick now, like we were all pumped up because Luka wasn't in great shape first 2 weeks of the season, but now they've seemed to get back. And I keep joking with my buddy Chris Henderson, who covers the Mavericks. I keep saying to him, like, enjoy your playing game that you're gonna have. And now I think they're the 6th seed. So I'm like, oh man, I didn't know they were gonna jump back into the playoffs like that.
Yeah, I'm hoping for them to fall down to the play-in and, you know, hopefully face Steph Curry or something like that. But I mean, Rose has been absolutely phenomenal. And like you said, Jerry, Obi is really improving almost every day. He doesn't get a whole lot of minutes, and that's why it's not spoken on a lot. But he's been rebounding well, as you said. He's been making really good defensive rotations. Like, he's in the right spots defensively. He hasn't been a liability at all as of recent. And yeah, the runouts with Rose telling him, you know, if I get the rebound, just take off, and making those great outlet passes, Obi finishing the transition. IQ has been getting so much better at creating. And I don't think that's being spoken on enough. And I'd like to see us give him more of those opportunities. To be honest, a lot of times he's only used as a decoy out there. But like, when he has the ball, he's super effective. Like, he scores well. He draws a lot of defensive attention. And I say that because one of the things he did was he made a nice entry pass to Obi, and then Obi spun baseline and like came up under somebody. And I was like, yo, what is going on here? So it's really nice to see those things start happening toward the end of the season. We get Alec Burks back. He just cleared safety and health protocol.
Oh, he did. It's official. He cleared. Okay.
It's officially cleared.
That dude is so important in the final couple. He's been running the point in the last 3 minutes in meaningful games. The IQ stuff, like, look, he is exactly what this team needs. Like, offensive firepower that we need. We have to have a true hair trigger jumper from any like whatever, you 30 feet, 25 feet, whatever. He's got it. I think the question marks coming in were, can he create off the dribble? He's already improved that. I mean, and maybe he didn't even need to improve it. Maybe he just didn't show it as much at Kentucky. Even when he was like, I wouldn't say in a slump, but he was hovering more down like the 30% stuff from the field. Like, he's still putting so much pressure on the defense. And now there is a nice scouting report on him that you got to honor the 3, you got to honor the floater. So he's freeing stuff up. Although I will say, I thought he had the best floater in the league. D Rose all of a sudden has turned into just the floater, like jump hook push. Like, I don't even know what he's doing. It is so crafty. It's like the old dude in the park that just got every move. He's throwing these floaters in traffic over 7-footers, and they're not even touching rim. They're just going right in. It's beautiful.
Yeah, IQ reawoken Chicago Rose, man. Because that's a move I really haven't seen that since Rose was at Chicago, and it's been beautiful to see. And Quickly's right behind him because that floater has a mind of its own sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, from the baseline, not even looking at backboard, like I think that's one of the toughest shots in basketball. And like, these guys are like hitting it at like a 68% clip. It's phenomenal.
And the amount of arc he gets on that with the angles he shoots it at is just ridiculous. Like it's crazy because when he puts it up, I just know that it's going in, but I still don't really know how.
Yeah. It started off as one of those like, no, yes. Now it's just kind of like, yes. It's like, now it's just like, it's total confidence. So, it's going to be tough. I'm looking forward to this road trip. I really am. Even if it doesn't go well, we have shown that, coming out of the All-Star break, we had that hellish schedule everyone was talking about. We lost a lot of 2-point games. It did seem for a minute there like, okay, this could start to come back down to a reality we don't like. But they just managed to like grind through, and then they got to the streak. So I'm confident, even if the West Coast trip doesn't go great, that, we will finish strong when we get back especially for those 2 important games against the Hornets and the Celtics.
Yeah. So, I know we don't have too much time here left, but I do want to get, shift gears here real quick and get your thoughts on the other basketball team in New York. I know you've had a little bit of a quarrel with all 5 of those Nets fans lately, but just wanted to pick your brain on basically the dynamic, because coming into this year, obviously it was, talked about the KD was going to be back, Kyrie was healthy, going to be playing. Obviously they were looming for a 3rd star, and people had kind of forgotten about the Knicks once again. And the fact that I think they just clinched a playoff berth, but the fact that we're pretty much right there behind them is still pretty encouraging. The fact that both New York teams could realistically be top 4 or 5 seeds out east is pretty good, pretty interesting. Atlantic Division is up there with the best divisions in basketball after years of futility and being one of the worst divisions in basketball. So as a whole, that's pretty good. But for people outside of New York, how can you help them understand this dynamic where they have the big 3, they have all this excitement, they're definitely going to win they're going to be scary in the playoffs when all 3 of them are playing. And even then, Julius Randle has so much attention on him just for leading this charge back with the Knicks. Could you help some of these people understand why that is the way that it is and why this is always going to be a Knicks town?
Well, I mean, it's just so hard. They never really had a chance if you think about it. Like, they're playing out in Jersey, and obviously they have their loyal fan base from there. And I give respect to anybody who loved this team from the moment they were playing, they started following it, whether that was the Jason Kidd year, Kerry Kittle years, or whether that was, the Paul Pierce KG weird year, whatever, like all love. But, you move into Brooklyn, you're trying to take over like the most honored market in basketball, really. So like, you never really going to win that fight, but they definitely did a good job running that franchise. They definitely changed their culture around, and they definitely drew KD. They drew Kyrie. Like, that all happens from within. So props to them. It's the Nets fans that I really wonder, were they Nets fans 3 years ago, 4 years ago? Because I could probably talk more about the Nets than some of them could. Okay. And, watching that, look, Jersey had a lot of success. The Kenyon Martin years, they destroyed us when we had Tim Thomas. So
Facts.
I could probably talk more Nets history. I go back to Drazen Petrovic, Derek Coleman, Kenny Anderson. It's the guys and girls that you just know, like 4 years ago, didn't give two whats about the Nets. And now that they got 3 of the best players in the history of basketball, now it's like the Net. And now they're trying to flip it on the Knicks fans that we're like this little brother. We can't keep their names out of our mouth. That's not the case. They were the ones who made this whole organizational campaign. What was it, last year, 2 years ago? Like the Knights of New York, whatever. Whatever. So like, yeah, I made a comment after the Raptor win, just simply saying, imagine like thinking the Knicks were, or thinking the Nets were like the most talked about team in New York, and everybody got all upset. All the Nets fans got all upset about that. Listen, you go sign those 3 guys. There's targets on your back. I don't care if you're playing in Brooklyn, Charlotte, Miami, LA, wherever. I'm going to talk about you. You are one of the best teams in the league, expected to do great things. So I'm going to talk about you no matter where you are. But don't think that that's the way to take over New York. That's not going to happen. It just doesn't work that way. You got a long way to go. I give respect to all the kids who are just getting into basketball now. And they're like, yeah, I like Brooklyn. Fine. Any Knicks fan that did the whole, I'm done with this here. I'm gonna switch to the like I've never met one yet, but I'm sure they're out there, and I would just love to hear the reasons why.
Shout out
You
Andrew
want to say
Yang.
because the Knicks suck, but and the Nets are good? Well, that doesn't work for me. Because now the Knicks are good. So now what's the excuse? The bandwagon, you guys have been keeping good track of the bandwagon, right? Like all the guys who've been done with the Knicks, but
easily,
now we're back.
easily.
100%.
All right, keep that list. Just keep it going. You know?
They're not back. You cross that bridge, you got to stay over there.
Yeah, man. Like you can't do the like I'm done with this team and then come running back. It don't work that way. Okay. So keep that list going. I want to check in on that list every now and then. But look, all respect to Nets fans who, you know, have been there either for a long time or if you're new to them, whatever. But like, come on, I don't care. I'm not worried about like anyone taking over New York. I'm just trying to win and get in the playoffs and enjoy some basketball. And guess what? With those 3 Hall of Famers come great expectations, right? Great expectations. We thought we might be getting KD and Kyrie for a minute. All I'm going to say is don't let anyone fool you into thinking that if for some reason these 2 teams meet in the first round, can't really say second round, could happen, but let's just say first round, maybe that happens. Don't think for 1 second the Nets fans aren't going to be way more nervous than the Knicks fans will be. Way more at stake for them than for us because we ain't even supposed to be there, right? We're not even supposed to be there. That's my rant.
It's a good rant, first of all, and it's a good point, second of all, because I feel like I've said this to Knicks fans before on this podcast, on social. It's funny when New Yorkers and fans of the New York teams want to use the relevance point, because for years I saw that with Knicks fans where they were like, well, we're the most relevant team. We're the most relevant team. And at the same time, then they would complain when they got bad press or coverage while they were bad. If you're so relevant and so big and important, when you're not playing well, it's going to be highlighted, unfortunately. But when you're playing well, same thing. Now it's a wild, out of control machine with how much good press that they've been getting. But to that point, the Nets, you got to expect that now. You know, you're one of the best teams. You got the top, 3 or 4 players in the league. And it's like, you do got some proving to do now. You are relevant. You are in New York. Even if you're the lesser team in terms of popularity, you're still a New York team. There's going to be a lot of eyes on you just from those guys. And you got to show up and act like it now. And they haven't really been playing much. I hate to ever belabor those points when there's that much talent, but they have played an exceptionally little amount of time together ahead of the playoffs. So obviously they have more seasons to accomplish the things that they need to accomplish. But in terms of this season, I don't know, man. And my last point here is that I'm not worried about the Knicks in the playoffs because I feel like they've played playoff basketball all year. There's been no blowouts for the most part, right? There's been a couple, maybe both directions. And they've been playing in these one-possession games, these high-pressure situations all year. So, you're going to go to the playoffs, and what changes? There's not going to be that many more fans, right? So you're basically doing the same thing you've done all year, which play close games, play good defense, and try to squeak out a win. That's a pretty good position to be in if you're the Knicks.
Listen, I could wrap it up with this, right? No matter what, and this is ultimately the only place I ever wanted to get to, nobody wants to play us in the first round or even the second round if we were so lucky to get there. Because not even saying that, we have a chance to beat you. Let's just say we are completely overmatched with the way this team functions and works. They are going to take something with them. They're going to take a piece of you with them. If not getting out of the first round is what the future is for this Knicks, if they go 6 games and out, 5 games and out, whatever, 7 games and out, whoever they play is going to be feeling the effects of that series in the second round. I just know it. And I know teams got to feel that. Maybe I'm overreaching and it's because it's the team I root for. But just from everything I've watching the other team as well, no one's enjoying I'm not saying they're enjoying playing, but you could tell everyone's like, oh, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought. So I may have to wrap up in a minute soon because I see my wife, who, by the way, everyone listening, is 10 months pregnant, if that's even possible. She's like, and I may have to wrap up. I think everything's okay, thankfully, but I might be running out of time here, boys. I'm talking too much. I'm sorry.
It's understandable. So we'll let you go. I know you got daddy duty. So we definitely appreciate you hopping on. Definitely appreciate you joining us. Hopefully, maybe down the road, a couple months, we can get you for playoff basketball, something like that. But we will talk as we always do and figure that out. But
yeah, no, I'm on. No matter if it's a the playoffs or play-in game, I would love to talk to you guys, or even leading up to those Celtic Hornet games, whatever. I want to come back on, and I'll make sure that, you know, things might be a little crazy over here with another baby, but I listen, man, the Knicks are going to get me through everything right now.
Jerry, don't you worry, because nothing's worse than my 3 god-awful dogs ruining every podcast at some point. So there's nothing that you could do at this point. But on that note, appreciate you joining us as always. Thank you for the time. And we will talk to you guys next time. Take it easy.
Adios.
Later, boys.